Well, hello there. Recently, I addressed another Quora question. Does a conservative version of Snopes.com exist? So, my answer, or a part of my answer, was there is no specific conservative version of Snopes.com, nor should you want one. Snopes is a fact checking website that examines and verifies the accuracy of various claims and rumors circulating on the internet. It aims to provide unbiased and nonpartisan assessments of the information it investigates. While some people have criticized Snopes for alleged bias or questioned its objectivity, the organization itself maintains that it adheres to rigorous fact checking standards and principles. So I do want to expand on that. Um, I just want to note that the far right does not like fact checkers. Snopes has debunked numerous false rumors and questionable claims from both conservatives and liberals. To be clear, that's part of the nature of checking facts is that you're supposed to be relatively unbiased. Although, of course, a lot depends on what you're selecting to debunk or verify. But you know, as an example, it debunked a number of fake news stories from far right and far left sources, specifically such as the Parkland school shooting and the Sandy Hook school shooting. That's one notable example, of course. You have people like Alex Jones who were spreading lies about that, claiming that those school shootings had crisis actors and whatnot. And Alex Jones ended up paying a pretty big fine, well, multiple fines in some courtroom verdicts. And obviously, you had the courts also fact checking his numerous lies. And, there have also been lies about the March for Our Lives organization, claiming that it's, of course, an evil organization. It's obviously up to some nefarious communistic cause or something like that. There are a bunch of unfounded claims of voter fraud in the 2022 U.S. presidential election. Those are still going on. And, you had Trump saying they cheated and they rigged our presidential election, but we will still win it back in 2020 when he was referring to the Georgia runoff election. And they're going to try and rig this election too, Um, that's what he said back in those runoffs. And yeah, that was something else. And you can go back and read about that wackiness in Reuters news service articles, including one article that called uh, that was called "Trump Keeps Up False Claims of Widespread Fraud at Georgia Rally for U.S. Senators." As the article notes, two pro-Trump lawyers, L. Lynn Wood and Sidney Powell, have argued that Georgians should not vote in the runoff until issues from the 2020 election are resolved in the state, even after lawsuits they have filed to overturn the results have failed. So, I mean, just think about that. Trump's lies were already dangerous, wacky, stupid, pathetic, and so many other things. But pile on to that Sidney Powell saying Georgians shouldn't vote, and you really have an extra tasty stupidity sandwich, basically with all the fixins. Yum, yum. And some people do eat it up unironically, somehow thinking these people have views seriously worth considering as potentially valid and true. Keep in mind that on July 6th, 2023, Lynn Wood surrendered his law license and retired from practicing law in order to avoid his potential disbarment in Georgia. Somehow it seems Sidney Powell has not been successfully disbarred, though she has been sanctioned and is no doubt under scrutiny by the DOJ, as well as so many others in Trump's orbit. And of course, you have things like Pizzagate, Marjorie Taylor Greene's Jewish space lasers, and on and on and on. It's just basically an endless list. And you know what? I'll be a little bit fair here. I will both sides it a bit by noting that yes, of course, some Democrats, liberals, and leftists also would not want to be fact checked regarding false claims they might make or fall for. So, for example, an organization like Snopes could have probably debunked a number of false rumors about the Russian involvement in the 2016 election and the relationship between President Donald Trump and Russia and stuff like that. There were some claims that were most certainly exaggerated. I think some of those claims really were, um, a little bit unfounded, you could say. If you really look at what happened there, it seems like most people concede that Russia's election interference apparently was mostly just some online bots used to help prop Trump up as a candidate or something like that, which isn't quite the same as some of the stuff the US has itself done to interfere with foreign elections and foreign governments, or its support of various coups, dictatorships, and terrorist organizations and that kind of stuff. I mean, it was still questionable, but I don't think there have yet been like really deep ties that have been exposed. Other than you know that, and that's one of the reasons the United States clearly lacked the moral authority on this issue, or even on Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Sure, you and I can say that Russia absolutely shouldn't have done that, and I do think that the Russian invasion is terrible and all that, but keep in mind the U.S. invaded Iraq based overwhelmingly on outright lies and false truths that could have been and should have been fact checked more thoroughly, and the U.S. even played a significant role in helping Saddam's power in Iraq to begin with. In fact, I know there's some old New York Times article that mentions U.S. support for Saddam Hussein and his Ba'ath Party going all the way back to the Kennedy administration. And of course, for a time, Saddam's Iraq even enjoyed favored nation trading status, and you needn't even know exactly what that means in order to guess that it's probably, you know, suggesting that we were allies in some key ways. And the US continued supporting Saddam through some of his worst atrocities, such as the Anfal campaign against Kurds, and so on and so forth. And in a way, George W. Bush deserves credit for his own big lie when it came to the Iraq War. Well, he of course told several lies, but the big one is that, Saddam had these deadly weapons and he was probably giving them to the Taliban or Al Qaeda or whatever. And for his own disdain for the on the ground fact checkers, he also didn't want to be fact checked. And some of these people were debunking his WMD lies in real time. And if you ask me, Hans Blix and Scott Ritter should have become household names for their good work as fact checkers. But the Iraq War in general is shockingly almost forgotten about almost entirely nowadays, even though it truly exposed the dangers of propaganda and just how cynical and powerful destructive government can be. But anyway, one of the most powerful tools nowadays is simply the power of a vague idea, and one that is truly difficult, if not impossible, to address with conventional fact checking. A good example of that would be just the words deep state. Just say deep state somewhere, and you're halfway to sounding deep and profound, and you really don't even need to make a specific claim about anything. We all know, as a matter of course, that government can be up to some shifty business. So just throw that word around, and it's almost like you have a blanket immunity from conventional fact checking. You can just say that everything's the fault of the deep state, and you will win certain arguments because people don't even know how to respond to that. Basically, just say Trump is a target of the deep state witch hunt, so therefore he can say and do anything he wants. And I guess some people are satisfied with that kind of argument. That's a very powerful propaganda tool. You could also say that all January 6th people who did something bad were the deep state or Antifa or the FBI. Also, go ahead and claim that white nationalists don't exist, but they are just the FBI trying to infiltrate MAGA to discredit Trump, or maybe they are again Antifa or something like that. Everyone is fake, everything is fake, nothing means anything. Everything is a profound conspiracy, and absolutely nothing is as it seems. It all just becomes one big convoluted spiderweb like mess. And as you can see, this is a powerful propaganda tool because it's deeply confusing and it's meant to be so. In order to come close to understanding these conspiracy theories, these intricate, complex webs that don't necessarily go anywhere, you at least have to flirt with paranoid delusion and quite possibly some other mental illnesses. And the rabbit hole can morph into a black hole, absorbing practically everything it touches. So, this is why we have seen things like a 40-year-old surf instructor in California who killed his kids with a spear gun because he believed they had serpent DNA. And you can read that crazy news story under the title Man Killed His Kids with Spear Gun Because of QAnon Conspiracy Theories, FBI says. And of course, if the paranoia is successful enough, you can see a story like that and instantly dismiss that as fake news because, again, anything and everything is fake. Who can you believe? You can only believe the leader that you're supposed to believe. Basically, the point is to create a potential continual disconnect from reality that can be flipped on and off like a switch by the most effective propagandists. Of course, such propagandists are themselves playing with fire because they are messing around with some volatile people, potentially. But hey, when you're willing to potentially burn the country down, if you can't have your way, you'll pour gasoline on every fire and salt on every wound. There were conspiracy theories about who had been responsible for the death of journalist Seth Rich, which resulted in Fox News having to settle in a defamation case. Then you have Fox News sued for defamation by voting machine companies, and they settled at least one of those. I'm not sure how the other one is going. There might be even more that I'm not aware of, but I know that one they settled. And of course, Trump tried to spread conspiracy theories related to a trove of classified documents that he had stolen and refused to hand back to authorities, including some tasty nuclear secrets. Anything that could cast failed former President Trump in a negative light must be fake news, though, right? That's the other effective propaganda tool. Granted, Snopes is not perfect by any means, or any other fact checker, as they're ultimately, limited by the people involved. Every organization has limited resources, and in terms of Snopes, they are actually a business. They're ultimately an outgrowth of commercial interests, and are therefore interested in making money. And you may obviously have some biases for that reason unto itself. Commercial interests have some sort of built-in restrictions going on. And the Associated Press also has a story on how Snopes engaged in some plagiarism itself. So that's always a questionable thing, right? However, the far right problem with Snopes or fact checkers would simply be that they are a fact checking website that often does appear to mean business. It's typically not some anything goes clown show where you can just make up things on a whim and denigrate vulnerable groups and spread disinformation, and disingenuous framing of any and all issues for some cynical political advantage. So I fully expect the right to try to revamp its efforts at creating its own Snopes like websites with the initial veneer of credibility and seriousness, but it will all be some thinly veiled disinformation campaigns designed to promote neo fascist talking points and thought patterns. And goddamn, that sentence itself that I just said sounds a bit paranoid on my part, doesn't it? But it happens to be true. And on that note, I'm going to wrap things up here and head out with some of my Democrat Party friends and drink a bunch of children's blood tonight. Ta ta.